6 months after Kira's bold proposal, Harmony Point Station prepared for its first interspecies partnership ceremony. Captain Tejo and Xena would officially become partners in both personal and professional ways. Their union would create a new model for relationships between different species. The ceremony took place in the station's main plaza, near the fountain with singing fish where Tejo had first met. Kira representatives from dozens of species came to witness the historic event. Many brought gifts and good wishes from their homeworlds. Kira wore a special dress made from silver cloth that matched her natural skin patterns. She carried flowers from her mother's shop, including the memory moss that had helped save so many lives. Her skin glowed with steady gold patterns, showing pure happiness. "Are you nervous, Mother?" Kira asked as they prepared for the ceremony. Xena's skin showed calm blue with sparkles of excited yellow. "A little nervous, but mostly happy. This feels right. I knew it would be right. I am good at seeing when people fit together." Dr. Park and Engineer Lee served as witnesses for Tejo. They had worked closely with the new family over the past months and had become close friends. Dr. Park wore her formal medical uniform with special badges showing her collaboration with Valerian. Scientist Ambassador Yoon attended the ceremony as an official representative of humanity. She had changed her opinion about interspecies relationships after seeing the successful medical collaboration. "This partnership represents the best of both our peoples," she announced to the gathered crowd. Elder Thomases performed the Valerian part of the ceremony. His skin pattern showed formal silver with warm gold edges, indicating official approval mixed with personal happiness. Today we witness the joining of two hearts that have already proven their strength together. The ceremony combined human and Valerian traditions. Tejo and Xena exchanged promises to support each other's dreams and work together for the good of all people. They planted a tree together, using soil from both Earth and Valara, symbolizing growth that honored both their backgrounds. When they kissed to seal their partnership, Kira clapped her hands and glowed so brightly that several aliens shielded their eyes. The singing fish in the fountain seemed to sing louder, as if celebrating with them. After the ceremony, many species approached the new family with requests for similar partnership programs. The success of the human-Valerian collaboration had inspired others to consider new possibilities. A group of insectoid scientists wanted to work with human engineers on new space travel technologies. Reptilian doctors hoped to learn from both human and Valerian medical techniques. Even the mysterious cloud beings expressed interest in cultural exchange. "We will help coordinate these partnerships," Xena promised the interested aliens. "Everyone deserves the chance to learn from each other." Commander Vex announced that Harmony Point would become the official center for interspecies partnership programs. This station has proven that different peoples can work together successfully. "We will welcome anyone who wants to build bridges instead of walls." Tejo's ship, the New Soul, received a new mission assignment. Instead of simple exploration, they would travel between worlds to establish partnership programs and help solve problems that required multiple species working together. Dr. Park accepted a permanent position as the Director of Interspecies Medical Research. She would split her time between space travel and working at the new research center on Harmony. Point. Engineer Lee volunteered to train other engineers in combining different species technologies. Her biological air filters, created with Valerian plant knowledge, were already being installed on ships throughout the galaxy. As the celebration continued into the evening, Kira found herself surrounded by children from many different species. They all wanted to hear the story of how she had brought her mother and the human captain together. "I just asked a simple question," Kira told them. "I asked if Captain Tejo would be good for my mother. Sometimes simple questions have big answers." Young reptilian child raised his clawed hand. "How did you know they would be good together? I watched them. When they were together, they both became happier and stronger. They helped each other learn new things. They made each other better." Insectoid child clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Could other species be good together too?" "Of course," Kira said, her skin glowing with certainty. "Good hearts recognize other good hearts, no matter what they look like on the outside." Later that night, the new family sat together in their expanded quarters on the station. Tejo had moved his personal belongings from the ship. Zena had relocated her shop to a larger space that could accommodate both botanical work and medical research. "What do you think will happen next?" Zena asked, as they watched Kira arrange her collection of gifts from the ceremony. "I think we will help many more people find ways to work together," Tejo replied. Kira started something that will spread. Throughout the galaxy, Kira looked up from her gifts. "Can we visit Earth and Valara together? I want to see both worlds that made my new family." "We will visit both worlds," Tejo promised. "You should learn about all the places that are part of your heritage. We will bring gifts from each world to the other," Zena added. Cultural exchange works both ways. Kira's skin patterns showed thoughtful purple mixed with excited gold. "Do you think other children will ask bold questions like I did?"
"I hope so,"
Tejo said. "Children often see possibilities that adults miss." "Good. The galaxy needs more bold questions and fewer scared answers." As they prepared for sleep, Kira made one more request. "Can we send a message to all the children on all the worlds? I want to tell them that different peoples can be family together." "What would you tell them?" Zena asked. Kira thought carefully before answering. "I would tell them to look for the good in everyone, even if they are different. I would tell them that asking questions is not wrong, even if adults get nervous. And I would tell them that love makes families, not just biology." Tejo smiled as he tucked the wise child into her bed. "Those are very good messages, Kira. Will you help me send them?" "We will help you send them to every world we visit," Zena promised. 6 months later, the new soul traveled between star systems, carrying families from mixed species. Human-Valerian partnerships were no longer unusual. Reptilian and Insectoid research teams worked on dozens of projects. Even the cloud beings had formed friendships with several solid matter species. Kira traveled with her parents, serving as an unofficial ambassador for interspecies understanding. Wherever they went, she told the story of how a simple question changed everything. Children throughout the galaxy began asking their own bold questions. Why can't we be friends with the aliens in the next system? Could our peoples work together to solve this problem? Would it be wrong to fall in love with someone who looks different? Adults learned to listen to these questions instead of dismissing them. They discovered that children often saw solutions that political fears had hidden. The galaxy became a smaller, friendlier place. Species that had been suspicious of each other for centuries began to cooperate. Problems that had seemed impossible were solved through combined knowledge and effort. And it all started with one young Valerian's innocent observation: "You're ideal for my mother. Human. Are you unattached? Would you be her mate?" Sometimes the most important questions come from the most unexpected sources. Sometimes the boldest requests lead to the most beautiful answers. And sometimes a child's simple wish for her mother's happiness can change an entire galaxy. Kira was right about many things, but she was especially right about this. Good hearts recognize other good hearts, no matter what they look like on the outside. 3 days had passed since Lady Vera Sultan came aboard the Horizon's Edge, and Captain Li Juan was starting to notice strange things happening throughout his ship. It began with small incidents that seemed unimportant at first, but together, they painted a troubling picture. Lieutenant Park Minho was the first to report something unusual. He found Juwan in the captain's ready room, looking excited but also confused. "Sir, I need to show you something about our engines," Minho said, carrying a datapad filled with readings. "Ever since Lady Sultan came aboard our quantum drive, efficiency has increased by 300%. Oh, that should be impossible." Guwan looked at the numbers on the screen. He was not an engineer, but even he could see that something was very wrong. "Are you sure these readings are correct?" "I've checked them 5 times, Minho replied, "and that's not all. Our power consumption has dropped by half, but our output has increased. It's like the ship is running better than it ever has before." Before Jawan could respond, Dr. Kim Sora entered the room. She looked tired and worried, with dark circles under her eyes. "Captain, we need to talk," she said. "I've been monitoring the crew's health since Lady Sultan arrived, and I'm seeing some very strange results." "What kind of results?" Juwan asked. "Enhanced brain activity across the entire crew. People are reporting vivid dreams, increased memory capacity, and improved problem-solving skills. Yeoman Jin Hyeri told me yesterday that she suddenly understood advanced mathematics that she had never studied before. Engineer Kung Minsu says he can see solutions to technical problems that were impossible just a week ago. Juan felt a chill run down his spine. Is this dangerous? I don't think so, Sora said carefully, but it's definitely not normal. There's something else. I've been trying to run medical scans on Lady Sultan with her permission, but the results don't make since she activated her datapad and showed them a series of readings. Look at this. Her biosignature keeps changing. Sometimes it looks almost human, other times it's completely alien. And when I try to get detailed scans, the equipment malfunctions. Minho frowned at the data. Could it be interference from whatever technology the cosmic nobility use? Maybe, Sora said. But I have another theory that might sound crazy. Guan gestured for her to continue. What if she's not what she appears to be? Sora asked. The cosmic nobility are supposed to be this ancient, godlike race that has ruled the galaxy for thousands of years? But what if that's just a story they want everyone to believe? Before anyone could respond, the ship's communication system activated. Captain Juan, this is Lady Sultan. Would it be possible for you to join me for dinner this evening? Are some matters we should discuss? Juan looked at his officers, then activated the CUM. Of course, Lady Sultan. I would be honored. Excellent. Please bring Dr. Kim Sora as well. Her scientific perspective may be valuable for our conversation. The communication ended, leaving the three humans staring at each other. She knew we were talking about her, Sora whispered. That's impossible, Minho said. This room is shielded. Juan felt the pieces of a puzzle starting to come together in his mind, but he could not yet see the complete picture. We'll find out tonight. Until then, keep monitoring everything. Keep this conversation between us. That evening, Jiwan and Dr. Sora made their way to the guest quarters where Lady Sultan was staying. The corridors seemed different somehow, as if the very air was charged with energy. Other crew members they passed looked more alert and focused than usual. When they reached the guest quarters, Lady Sultan opened the door before they could announce themselves. She was wearing different robes now, these ones a deep blue that seemed to contain tiny stars. Her silver hair was arranged in a simple style, and her otherworldly beauty was as striking as ever. Please, come in, she said, gesturing to a table that had been set for three. I hope you don't mind that I took the liberty of having your food services prepare a meal. As they sat down, Juan noticed that Lady Sultan seemed more relaxed than before. There was something different about her manner, less formal, and more ... human. Captain Juan, Dr. Sora, she began. I believe you have been noticing some unusual effects since I came aboard your ship. Yes, Sora said carefully. The crew is experiencing enhanced cognitive abilities. Our ship's systems are performing far beyond normal parameters. Lady Sultan nodded. And you are wondering why this is happening? The thought had occurred to us, Juan said. Lady Sultan was quiet for a long moment, seeming to wrestle with some internal decision. Finally, she reached up and began to unfasten the outer layer of her ceremonial robes. Don't sneak a glance, she said softly, but there was something different in her voice now. The strange harmonics were fading, and she sounded more ... ordinary. Look directly at what I'm about to show you, because the truth is more important than any illusion. As the outer robe fell away, something amazing happened. The glow that surrounded Lady Sultan began to fade. Her hair, while still silver, no longer moved on its own. Her skin, though still beautiful, lost its otherworldly luminescence. Most shocking of all, her eyes, while still striking, no longer held the depth of galaxies. Dr. Sora gasped. Your biosignature just stabilized. You're reading as ... human, Lady Sultan finished. Yes, Dr. Sora. I am human, just like you. The revelation hit them like a physical blow. Juan stared at her, his mind racing to process what he was seeing. But that's impossible, he said. The cosmic nobility have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Humanity only achieved spaceflight 50 years ago, Lady Sultan smiled. Sadly, that's what we wanted everyone to believe. But the truth is much more complicated. She gestured to herself. What you saw before, the glowing skin, the moving hair, the voice that carried strange harmonics, all of that was created by advanced technology, bioengineering and psychic projection devices that make us appear godlike to other species. We, Sora asked. The cosmic nobility are all human, Dr. Sora. We are humans from your future who discovered time travel and came back to establish ourselves as the rulers of galactic civilization. The silence that followed was deafening. Juan felt as though the foundations of everything he believed about the universe were crumbling. Why? He finally asked. Why would future humans do this to their own past? Lady Sultan's expression grew even sadder. Power, control, fear. A faction of humans in the far future became convinced that if present-day humanity was allowed to develop naturally, it would eventually surpass them. So they came back in time, used their advanced technology to pose as an ancient godlike race, and built galactic civilization in a way that would keep present-day humans as a minor controlled species. And you? Sora asked. Are you part of this conspiracy? I was, Lady Sultan admitted. My real name is Yoon Nari. I was born in the 23rd century, but I was recruited by the temporal faction when I was very young. I have spent centuries maintaining this lie, helping to keep humanity in its place. Then why are you telling us this? Yuan demanded. Yunari looked at both of them with eyes that now seemed very human and very tired. Because I'm tired of the deception, because I've watched your species struggle against artificial limitations for decades, and because I believe you have the right to know the truth about what you're really capable of. She leaned forward across the table. The enhanced abilities your crew is experiencing? That's your natural human potential beginning to emerge. The improvements to your ship? That's human ingenuity responding to the presence of advanced technology. You don't need us to be gods, Captain. You have the capacity to become everything we became and more. Guan felt a mixture of anger and hope rising in his chest. What happens now? Now, Yoon, Nari said, you have a choice. You can report this conversation to your superiors and let them decide what to do with this information. Or you can help me do something that could change the course of galactic history. What did you have in mind? Sora asked. Yunari smiled, and for the first time since they had met her, the expression seemed completely genuine and human. We're going to give humanity back its future. Captain Li Guan sat in stunned silence, staring at the woman who had just revealed herself to be Yunari. Instead of the cosmic goddess they had rescued, Dr. Kim Sora was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. How long has this been going on? She asked. Yunari poured herself a cup of tea with hands that now trembled slightly. Without her technological disguise, she looked tired and very human. The temporal faction began their operations over 3,000 years ago. They arrived in the distant past when most species in this galaxy were still primitive, barely beginning to understand fire and basic tools. She took a sip of tea and continued. They had technology that seemed like magic to those early civilizations. Anti-gravity vehicles, energy weapons, medical devices that could heal any wound, genetic engineering that could extend life indefinitely. To primitive minds, they appeared to be gods descended from the heavens. Guan found his voice. So they established themselves as rulers from the very beginning of galactic civilization. Exactly, Nari said. They didn't conquer through force, not at first. They presented themselves as benevolent guides, teachers who would help younger species reach their potential. But every piece of guidance came with limitations. Every technology they shared was deliberately incomplete. Every advancement they allowed was carefully controlled. Dr. Sora leaned forward. What about the other species? The Galactic Council? Are they all part of this conspiracy? No. Nari shook her head. Most species developed naturally, though. Their growth was shaped by the temporal faction's influence. The Zephyrians, the Altarians, the Crystalline Collective, they're all genuine species who achieved spaceflight on their own. But they did so in a galaxy where the cosmic nobility were already established as the ultimate authority. She stood, and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. The beautiful irony is that several of these species have actually surpassed humanity's current technological level. The Zephyrians developed quantum computing centuries before present day. Humans even understood the basic principles. The Altarians created renewable energy sources that could power entire star systems. Then why don't they rule the galaxy instead of the cosmic nobility? Guan asked. Nari turned back to them with a bitter smile. Because they believe in the myth. They've been taught for thousands of years that the cosmic nobility are their betters, ancient beings with wisdom and power beyond comprehension. When a species has believed something for that long, questioning it becomes almost impossible. She returned to her seat and activated a small device that projected a holographic star map above the table. Let me show you the scope of what we're dealing with. The map showed the entire galaxy, with different regions highlighted in various colors. The red zones are areas directly controlled by the temporal faction. The yellow zones are species that have been heavily influenced by our guidance. The green zones are regions that developed with minimal interference. Giwan studied the map. The red zones include all the major trade routes and the most resource-rich systems. Of course, Nari said. The temporal faction didn't just want to rule, they wanted to control the galaxy's entire development. They positioned themselves at the center of all major economic, political, and technological networks. Dr. Sora pointed to a small blue dot on the edge of the map. Where is Earth? There Nari highlighted the dot. Notice how it's positioned far from any major trade routes or resource centers. That's not an accident. The temporal faction has been subtly guiding galactic development to ensure that when present-day humanity finally achieved spaceflight, they would find themselves in a position of weakness. The implications hit Jiwan like a physical blow. You're saying that humanity's current position in galactic politics was engineered from the beginning. Every aspect of it, Nari confirmed. The late discovery of faster-than-light travel, the difficulty in establishing trade relationships, the perception of humans as a young and inexperienced species, all of it was carefully orchestrated. She manipulated the hologram to show a timeline stretching back thousands of years. Here you can see the pattern. Whenever a species began to develop technologies that might threaten the temporal faction's control, they would intervene, sometimes through direct action, sometimes through more subtle influence. What kind of direct action? Sora asked, though. Her expression suggested she already suspected the answer. Wars, Nari said simply. Plagues. Natural disasters that weren't entirely natural. The Great Plague that struck the Altarians 500 years ago and set back their development by centuries? That was engineered. The civil wars that tore apart the Zephyrian Empire just as they were developing temporal research of their own. Those were instigated by temporal faction agents. Jiwan felt sick. How many species have suffered because of this conspiracy? All of them, Nari said quietly. Every intelligent species in this galaxy has been held back from reaching their full potential. And the worst part is that most of them are grateful for it. They believe the cosmic nobility saved them from themselves. She deactivated the hologram and looked directly at both humans. But humanity presents a unique problem for the temporal faction. You see, we are them. Present-day humans have the exact same potential that allowed the temporal faction to develop. They're advanced technology in the first place, so they can't just eliminate us, Sora realized. If they destroyed present-day humanity, they would prevent their own existence. Exactly. Instead, they have to control humanity's development very carefully. Keep you advanced enough to eventually become them, but not so advanced that you might surpass them or choose a different path. Giwan stood and began pacing around the small room. This is insane. You're telling me that human history, galactic history, everything we thought we knew is a lie? Not a lie, Nari said. A carefully constructed story. The temporal faction didn't erase the truth. They just made sure that no one would be in a position to see it clearly. Except you, Sora pointed out. You're seeing it clearly now. Why, Nari was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was filled with pain, because I've been part of this system for over 2 centuries. I've watched species after species accept limitations that were placed on them artificially. I've seen brilliant minds give up on ideas that could have revolutionized their civilizations simply because they believed they weren't worthy of such knowledge. She looked at her hands. I've personally been responsible for suppressing technological developments that could have ended poverty, disease, and war for entire worlds. All to maintain the temporal faction's control. What changed your mind? Juan asked. Contact with present-day humanity, she said. 50 years ago, when your species first achieved faster-than-light travel, I was assigned to monitor your progress. I've been watching human exploration vessels for decades, and I've seen something that reminded me of what we used to be. She smiled, and this time it was a genuine expression of hope. When you encounter a problem, you find a way around it. When someone tells you something is impossible, you prove them wrong. When you're faced with limitations, you break through them. The temporal faction has forgotten what that feels like, she continued. They've been in control for so long that they've become afraid of change, afraid of growth, afraid of the very qualities that made them powerful in the first place. Dr. Sora leaned back in her chair, overwhelmed by the scope of what they had learned. So what do we do with this information, even if we told people who would believe us? That's the challenge, Nari admitted. The temporal faction has spent thousands of years building their reputation. They have agents throughout galactic civilization, advanced technology that seems like magic, and the loyalty of species who genuinely believe they owe their existence to cosmic nobility guidance. But they also have a weakness, she added. They're terrified of being exposed. Their entire power structure depends on maintaining the illusion of their divine nature. If that illusion were shattered, Kiwan stopped pacing and looked at her intently. What would happen? And galactic civilization would have to rebuild itself based on truth instead of lies. Species would be free to develop their full potential, without artificial limitations, and humanity would take its rightful place as an equal partner in that development. Or, Sora said grimly, everything would collapse into chaos and war. Nari nodded. That's the risk. But I've come to believe that the risk is worth taking. The current system is slowly strangling the growth of every species in the galaxy. Something has to change. She looked at both of them with an expression of desperate hope. The question is, are you willing to help me change it? Jiwan and Dr. Sora exchanged glances. They both knew that their answer would determine not just their own fate, possibly the fate of every intelligent being in the galaxy. The weight of that decision hung in the air between them like a challenge waiting to be accepted. Captain Li Guan stared at Yunari for several long minutes before speaking. The weight of everything she had told them seemed to press down on his shoulders like a physical burden. If we help you, he said slowly, what exactly are you asking us to do? Nari stood and walked to a wall panel, pressing her hand against it. The panel glowed briefly, then opened to reveal a collection of devices that looked far more advanced than anything Jiwan had ever seen. These are temporal communication devices, she explained. They allow me to stay in contact with the faction, but they also contain detailed records of the conspiracy, including the locations of other agents, hidden bases, and suppressed technologies. Dr. Kim Sora approached the devices cautiously. You're talking about exposing the entire operation.
Yes.
Nari said, but it's not as simple as just broadcasting the truth. The temporal faction has contingency plans. If they detect a major security breach, they can activate something called the reset protocol. What's that? Guan asked, though he suspected he didn't want to know the answer. They can travel back in time and change key events to prevent the exposure from ever happening, Nari explained. They could eliminate everyone who knows the truth, alter the timeline so that certain discoveries are never made, or even prevent humanity from achieving spaceflight altogether. The implications hit G1 like a cold wave. So if we try to expose them and fail, they could erase humanity from galactic civilization entirely. Or worse, Nari said grimly, they could trap humanity in an endless loop, forever approaching the moment of truth but never quite reaching it. Dr. Sora sat down heavily in a chair. Then what's the point? If they can just undo anything we do, how can we possibly win? Because the reset protocol has limitations, Nari said. It requires enormous amounts of energy and can only be used a limited number of times. More importantly, it becomes less effective the more people know the truth. If enough individuals across different species become aware of the conspiracy, the faction can't eliminate all of them without causing paradoxes that could destroy the timeline entirely. She pulled out one of the devices and activated it, showing a complex display of information.
Ow.
The key is to reach what we call the critical awareness threshold. If we can get the truth to enough people across enough different worlds and species, the conspiracy becomes impossible to contain. Giwan studied the display. How many people are we talking about? At least 10,000 individuals from at least 50 different species, spread across multiple star systems, Nari said. They all need to understand the truth completely. Not just hear rumors or partial information. That's impossible, Sora said. How could we possibly reach that many people without the temporal faction detecting what we're doing? Before Nari could answer, the ship's communication system activated. Chief Tactical Officer Choi Daeho's voice came through the speakers. Captain, we're receiving a priority communication from the Galactic Council. They're requesting an immediate status report on Lady Sultan's rescue. Juan felt his blood turn cold. He looked at Nari, who had gone very pale. They know, she whispered. The faction must have detected my extended absence from the network. Activated the CUM. Tell them we're conducting final medical checks, and we'll report within the hour. Understood, sir. When the CUM closed, Nari was already packing the temporal devices back into their hiding place. Captain, you need to make a decision right now. In less than an hour, a temporal faction ship will arrive to retrieve me. When that happens, they'll scan your entire vessel and crew. If they detect any knowledge of the truth, they'll eliminate everyone aboard. What are our options? Juwan asked. 3 choices, Nari said quickly. First, you can pretend this conversation never happened. I'll tell them you were perfect hosts who knew nothing. You'll be safe, but humanity will remain under their control. Forever? Second choice? Sora asked. You can come with me, Nari said. Join the temporal faction officially. They'll give you advanced technology, extended lifespans, and positions of power. But you'll have to abandon your timeline and help maintain the conspiracy. Giwan felt sick at both options. And the third choice? We run, Nari said simply. Take your ship, gather as many allies as we can, and try to reach the critical awareness threshold before they can stop us. That sounds like suicide, Sora pointed out. Maybe Nari admitted. But it's also the only choice that gives humanity a real future. Juwan closed his eyes and thought about everything they had learned. The idea that his entire species had been living under artificial limitations for their entire history made him angry. But the idea of condemning his crew to death or eternal exile made him feel responsible for their lives. When he opened his eyes, he found both women watching him intently. Dr. Sora, he said, as the senior science officer, what's your assessment of our chances if we choose the third option? Sora was quiet for a moment, then said, honestly, very low. We're talking about going up against an organization that has controlled galactic civilization for thousands of years. They have technology we can barely comprehend and resources we can't match. But Jiwan sensed there was more to her analysis. But they also have weaknesses, she continued. They're overconfident, they're afraid of change, and they've been operating in secret for so long that they're not prepared for open conflict. Most importantly, they're fighting against the natural development of multiple species. That's like trying to hold back the tide. Nari looked surprised. You think we might actually have a chance? I think Sora said carefully that if we're smart about it, if we can find the right allies, and if we're willing to take risks that they're not prepared for, we might be able to create enough chaos to reach your critical awareness threshold. Giwan made his decision. We run. Nari stared at him. You sure? There's no going back once we start this. I'm sure, Guan said. But first, we need to tell the crew. They deserve to know what they're choosing. Over the next 30 minutes, Jiwan called an emergency meeting in the ship's main conference room. He gathered all senior officers and department heads, then had Nari explain everything she had told them. The reactions were exactly what he had expected. Shock, disbelief, anger, and fear. Lieutenant Park Minho was the first to speak when Nari finished. So you're telling us that everything we've been taught about galactic history is a lie? Yes, Nari said simply, and that these cosmic nobility are actually future humans who have been manipulating our development. Yes, and now you want us to help you expose them, even though it will probably get us all killed. Nari paused. Yes. Minho looked around, the room at his colleagues, then back at Nari. When do we start? One by one, each officer in the room voiced their agreement. Some were motivated by anger at the deception. Others were driven by curiosity about what humanity could really achieve. A few simply couldn't bear the thought of living a lie. But all of them made the same choice. All right then, Jawan said. Dr. Sora, how long until that faction ship arrives? 23 minutes, she said after checking her instruments. That's not enough time to get far enough away, Nari said. They'll be able to track us easily. Chief Tactical Officer Choi Daeho raised his hand. What if we don't run? Everyone looked at him in confusion. What if we let them come aboard? Continued. What if we pretend everything is normal until we can get close enough to their ship to learn how their technology works? Nari's eyes widened. That's incredibly dangerous. If they suspect anything, then we'll improvise, Daeho said with a grin. Humans are good at that, right? Guan felt a smile spreading across his face. Dr. Sara, can you rig our internal sensors to hide the enhanced readings from the crew? Give me 15 minutes, she said, already heading for the door. Nari, Jiwan said, can you put your disguise back on? She nodded, reaching for the devices that created her cosmic appearance. Then let's give these future humans a demonstration of what present-day human ingenuity looks like. As the crew scattered to prepare for the arrival of the temporal faction ship, Giwan couldn't help but feel that they were about to attempt something that was either brilliant or completely insane. Probably both. 20 minutes later, the temporal faction ship arrived. From the bridge of the horizon's edge, Captain Li Juan watched as a vessel unlike anything he had ever seen materialized out of what appeared to be empty space. It was massive, at least 3 times the size of his ship, and its hull seemed to be made of a material that shifted between solid matter and pure energy. That's a temporal enforcement cruiser, Yunari said quietly. She had reactivated her disguise and once again appeared as the otherworldly Lady Vera Sultan, but Jiwan could hear the tension in her voice. They're the faction's most advanced ships. How many crew? Asked Chief Tactical Officer Choi Daeho. Usually 5, Nari replied, but they're all enhanced beings with technology that makes them nearly impossible to defeat in direct combat. Communication system crackled to life. Human vessel, this is Commander Zex Valdris of the Temporal Authority. We are here to retrieve Lady Sultan. Prepare for immediate transport. Juan activated the comm. Commander Valdris, this is Captain Li Juan. Lady Sultan is recovering from her ordeal and requests that you come aboard to discuss the incident. She has important information about the stellar anomaly that destroyed her ship. There was a pause. Very well. I will transport aboard with 1 escort. Have Lady Sultan meet us in your main shuttle bay. As the communication ended, Guan looked at his crew. Dr. Kim Sora had managed to mask the enhanced readings throughout the ship. Lieutenant Park Min-ho had prepared several surprises in the engineering sections. The rest of the crew was ready to act on his signal. Remember, Guan said quietly, we need to get close enough to their ship to scan their technology and send out our message to other human vessels. Everyone stay calm and follow Nari's lead. In the shuttle bay, Jiwan and Nari waited as 2 figures materialized in beams of silver light. The first was tall and imposing with features that seemed too perfect to be entirely natural. Like Nari, he radiated an otherworldly presence that made looking at him feel uncomfortable. The second figure was smaller, but somehow more intimidating, with eyes that seemed to see everything. Lady Sultan, the tall figure said, I am Commander Valdris. This is Agent Keth Morian. We have come to escort you home. Nari bowed gracefully. Commander, I am grateful for your swift response. But there are matters we must discuss before I return. What matters? Agent Morian asked. Her voice carried the same strange harmonics as Nara's disguised voice, but there was something colder about it. The stellar anomaly that destroyed my ship was not natural, Nari said. I believe it was artificially created. Commander Valdres frowned. That's impossible. No species in this region has technology capable of manipulating stellar phenomena. Nari continued. I detected energy signatures that were consistent with temporal manipulation. Someone wanted me eliminated. Gaiwan watched the two agents carefully. He could see doubt and concern in their expressions. More importantly, he could see that they believed Nari was still loyal to their cause. If what you say is true, Valdres said, then we need to conduct a full investigation. Agent Morian, scan this ship for any temporal energy residue. Of course, Morian said, pulling out a device that looked like a crystalline rod. As she activated it, Jiwan held his breath. If their deception was discovered now, it would all be dead within seconds. The device hummed softly as Morian moved it around the shuttle bay. After several tense minutes, she shook her head. No temporal energy detected, but there are some unusual quantum fluctuations in the ship's power systems. That's normal for human vessels, Nari said quickly. Their technology is still quite primitive. Valdres nodded dismissively. Indeed, Captain Juan, we thank you for your assistance in rescuing Lady Sultan. You will be appropriately rewarded for your service to the Galactic Council. Actually, Jiwan said, Lady Sultan has offered to give my crew a brief tour of your ship as a reward. Most of my people have never seen cosmic nobility technology up close. Valdres looked annoyed. That's highly irregular. Ships contain sensitive information. Of course, Nari said smoothly. But surely a basic tour of the public areas would be harmless. These humans did save my life, after all. After some hesitation, Valdres agreed. Very well, a brief tour only. No recording devices and no access to restricted areas. Over the next hour, small groups of humans were transported to the Temporal Enforcement Cruiser. Each group appeared to be simply curious tourists, marveling at the advanced technology they saw. But in reality, each crew member was carefully memorizing everything they observed and secretly scanning the ship's systems with concealed devices. Dr. Sora was particularly successful, managing to record detailed information about the ship's temporal manipulation systems. Lieutenant Minho identified the power source and navigation systems. Chief Daeho mapped the ship's weapon configurations and defensive capabilities. Most importantly, they discovered that the ship's communication array was powerful enough to send messages across the entire galaxy. Instantaneously, when the last group returned to the horizon's edge, Giwan knew they had everything they needed to begin their rebellion. Commander Valdres, Nari said as they prepared to leave, I would like to remain aboard this human ship for a few more hours too. Complete my investigation of the stellar anomaly? Absolutely not, Agent Morian said immediately. The Council is expecting your immediate return. The Council can wait, Nari said with the authority of her supposed rank. This investigation takes priority. Valdres looked uncomfortable but nodded. Very well. We will remain in the area for 4 hours. Signal us when you are ready for transport. After the two agents returned to their ship, Giwan gathered his crew in the engineering section, where they couldn't be overheard. Did everyone get what they needed? He asked. More than enough, Dr. Sora said excitedly. I now understand how their temporal technology works. It's actually based on human quantum physics, just taken to an extreme level. I can replicate their power systems, Minho added. It will take some time, but I can give our ship capabilities similar to theirs. And I can modify our weapons to penetrate their shields, Daeho said. They're not expecting anyone to understand their technology well enough to counter it. Nari looked amazed. In 1 hour, you've learned more about our technology than most species discover in centuries. It's because we're not most species, Juwan said. We're humans. It's time to show the galaxy what that really means. Over the next 3 hours, the crew of the Horizon's Edge worked with desperate efficiency. Using the information they had gathered, they modified their ship's systems, prepared messages to be sent to other human vessels, and created a plan to escape once they revealed the truth. The most important part of their plan involved using the Temporal Enforcement Cruiser's own communication array against the Temporal faction. Dr. Sora had discovered that she could hack into Robe's system and send a galaxy-wide broadcast that would reach every human ship in space simultaneously. The message needs to be perfect, Nari said as they prepared the broadcast. It has to contain enough proof to convince people, but be simple enough that anyone can understand it. Dr. Sora had prepared a data package that included scans of Nerys, technology, recordings of her confession, and detailed information about the temporal conspiracy. But the most powerful part of the message was a simple statement from Captain Ji-wan: to all human vessels in space, we're being lied to. The cosmic nobility are not ancient gods. They are humans from our future who have been controlling galactic civilization for thousands of years. We have proof, we have allies, and we need your help to set things right. Don't let them convince you that humans are inferior. Don't let them keep us from reaching our full potential. The time has come to take back our future. When everything was ready, Gi-wan looked at his crew one last time. Once we send this message, there's no going back. The temporal faction will try to destroy us and everyone who believes us. Are you all ready for that? Every person in the room nodded without hesitation. And let's make some history, Ji-wan said. Dr. Sora activated the hack, and the message began broadcasting across the galaxy. At the same time, Lieutenant Minho engaged the modified engines, and the Horizon's Edge leaped away from the temporal enforcement cruiser at speeds that should have been impossible for a human ship behind them. Alarms began sounding aboard the faction vessel as they realized what had happened. The rebellion had begun. Within hours, human ships across the galaxy began responding to the message. Some were skeptical, others were angry, but many were ready to fight for the truth. And for the first time in thousands of years, the temporal faction found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't simply eliminate or control. They were facing human determination, human ingenuity, and human refusal to accept limitations that others tried to place on them. The galaxy was about to discover what humanity was really capable of when they stopped holding back. 6 months had passed since Captain Li Guan and his crew sent their galaxy-wide message, and the universe had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The Horizon's Edge now served as the flagship of what had become known as the Human Liberation Fleet, a collection of over 300 human vessels that had joined the rebellion against the temporal faction. But the most surprising development was that humans were not fighting alone. Captain Ji-wan stood on the bridge of his ship, watching through the viewport as vessels from dozens of different species moved in formation around them. Safarian quantum ships with their distinctive crystal hulls flew alongside Altarian energy vessels that seemed to be made of pure light. Even the mysterious crystalline collective had sent representatives to join what they now called the Truth Alliance. Status report, Guan called out. Dr. Kim Sora, who had been promoted to science director of the fleet, turned from her station. All allied vessels are in position. We have confirmation from intelligence teams on 47 different worlds that the populations are ready for the revelation. Lieutenant Park Minho, now chief engineer of the fleet, looked up from his console. The quantum amplifiers are fully charged. When we activate them, our message will reach every inhabited world in the galaxy simultaneously. Chief Tactical Officer Choi Dae-ho, who had become the fleet's military coordinator, nodded grimly. And the temporal faction ships are moving to intercept us. They know what we're planning. Yoon Nari, who had officially abandoned her Lady Sultan identity months ago, approached Ji-wan's command chair. She looked tired but hopeful, her human appearance no longer hidden by technological disguises. The other defectors are in position, she reported. We now have 17 former temporal faction agents ready to testify about the conspiracy. That should be enough to convince even the most skeptical populations. Gi-wan nodded. Today was the day they would either succeed in reaching the critical awareness threshold, or they would all be destroyed by the temporal faction's desperate counterattack. The plan was ambitious, but simple. Using a network of quantum amplifiers positioned throughout the galaxy, they would broadcast the complete truth about the temporal conspiracy to every world simultaneously. The broadcast would include testimony from defectors, technological evidence, and historical records that proved the cosmic nobility were actually future humans. Most importantly, they would demonstrate that the enhanced abilities many species had developed since learning the truth were not gifts from the gods, but natural capabilities that had been artificially suppressed for thousands of years. Incoming transmission. From the temporal faction, Deho announced. The main screen activated, showing a figure that Giwan recognized as High Commander Altrix Therion, the leader of the temporal faction. He appeared as a being of pure energy and light, but Juwan now knew it was just another technological disguise hiding a human from the far future. Captain Juwan, Therion said, his voice carrying harmonics that once would have been overwhelming, but now seemed merely annoying. You have caused enough chaos. Surrender now, and we will offer you and your followers a place in the natural order. The natural order? Guan replied. You mean the artificial system you created to keep everyone under your control? You understand nothing, Therion said angrily. We brought peace to the galaxy. We ended the wars that destroyed countless civilizations, guided primitive species to prosperity and stability. By lying to them, Nari said, stepping into view of the screen. By making them believe they were inferior to you. By preventing them from reaching their full potential. Therion's disguised features showed what might have been sadness. You, Nari. You were once one of our most promising agents. Why have you chosen to destroy everything we built? Because what we built was wrong, Nari replied. Well, I've spent the last 6 months watching species after species discover what they're really capable of when they stop believing in artificial limitations. The Zephyrians have developed technologies that surpass even ours. The Altarians have created art and philosophy that we never imagined possible. The Crystalline Collective has achieved a level of unity and cooperation that makes our control systems look primitive. She gestured to the mixed fleet visible through the viewport. Look around you. This alliance exists because these species chose to work together as equals, not because some supposed gods told them what to do. And yet Therion said coldly, You are about to destroy the stability that has prevented galactic war for 3 millennia. Maybe, Guan admitted. But we're also about to give every species in the galaxy the chance to choose their own future, instead of having it chosen for them. Therion raised his hand and energy began to gather around his form. Then you have chosen destruction over order, so be it. The transmission ended. And immediately the space around the Truth Alliance fleet erupted in energy beams and exotic weapons fire. The temporal faction had brought their most powerful ships to stop the broadcast. Vessels that could manipulate time and space in ways that defied conventional understanding. But the Allied fleet was ready for them. Over the past 6 months, ingenuity combined with alien knowledge had created new technologies that the temporal faction had never encountered. Zephyrian quantum shields protected ships from temporal manipulation. Altarian energy weapons could penetrate dimensional barriers. Crystalline collective coordination systems allowed the entire fleet to act as a single organism. Most importantly, the humans had developed something the temporal faction had forgotten: how to use, the ability to adapt and improvise under pressure. All ships, begin the broadcast, Giwan ordered. Across the galaxy, quantum amplifiers activated simultaneously. On every inhabited world, on every space station, in every ship, the same message began playing. The complete truth about the temporal conspiracy, told in the languages and communication methods of hundreds of different species. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On some worlds, populations rose up against temporal faction control centers. On others, scientists and philosophers who had been suppressed for generations finally shared their discoveries.
Ow!
Throughout the galaxy, beings who had spent their entire lives believing they were inferior suddenly understood that they had the potential to be so much more. Critical awareness threshold achieved, Dr. Sora announced, her voice filled with excitement. We're receiving confirmations from every major population center. They know the truth. Commander Therion's voice came through the communication. System won last time, but now it sounded different. The technological harmonics were gone, replaced by the voice of a very tired and very human man. You have no idea what you've done, he said. Without our guidance, the galaxy will tear itself apart. Maybe, Juan replied. Or maybe it will become something better than you ever allowed it to be. The temporal faction ships began withdrawing from the battle. Without the power of their divine illusion, They were just advanced technology operated by beings who had grown afraid of change. What happens now? Nari asked as they watched the enemy fleet retreat. We find out what the galaxy looks like. When everyone is free to reach their full potential, Juan said. Over the following months, galactic civilization transformed in ways that surprised everyone. Instead of the chaos and war that Therion had predicted, the revelation of the truth led to an explosion of creativity, cooperation, and discovery. Species that had been enemies for centuries discovered that their conflicts had been artificially maintained by temporal faction manipulation. Worlds that had struggled with poverty and disease suddenly had access to technologies that had been suppressed for generations. Young beings across the galaxy began developing abilities that their elders had never dreamed possible. The Galactic Council was restructured as a true democracy, with representatives from all species participating as equals. The temporal faction, agents who chose to integrate with present-day civilization, were welcomed as teachers and advisors, sharing their knowledge freely instead of hoarding it. Captain Jiwan was promoted to Admiral and given command of the new Galactic Exploration Fleet, a joint organization dedicated to discovering what lay beyond the borders of their galaxy. Dr. Sora became the head of the new Institute for Free Scientific Research, where beings from all species worked together without artificial limitations. Lieutenant Minho designed the engines for a new generation of ships that could travel between galaxies. Chief Deho organized the Galactic Defense Force, ensuring that no faction would ever again control civilization through deception. And you, Nari, now using her real name and her real human appearance, became humanity's first ambassador to the reformed Galactic Council. 1 year after the revelation, she stood before the council chambers, addressing representatives from hundreds of species. Her words echoed the beginning of their journey, but with a new meaning. For too long, we were told not to sneak a glance at our true potential, she said. We were taught to look away from possibilities that seemed too great for us to achieve. But the truth is that every species in this galaxy has capabilities that we are only beginning to understand. She looked out at the diverse assembly of beings who had once believed they needed gods to guide them, and who now knew they could guide themselves.